Velma, I may be stepping on a few people's toes in this one as we handle the topic of Season 2. It comes as news as the CEO of Warner Brothers Television Group comes out and confirms the second season. Channing Dungey breaks down Warner Brothers TV comedy business, and I think the first sign of her being an inevitable failure is when she starts talking about hard funny is making a comeback. Hard funny is things like The Three Stooges, which is a pie in the face. We're looking to figure out how we can do shows that lean into that kind of hard funny perspective, because the lines between comedic drama and a pie in the face are coming a little bit blurry. Now you'll have to forgive me if I'm instantly dubious at anyone who lists Friends and The Big Bang Theory as their top two comedies, but in a world where you've got Coupling, Black Books, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, Blackadder, Red Dwarf, and you're trying to define comedy based off The Big Bang Theory, I'm just not sure we're talking about the same kind of subject. And this is made doubly clear at the end of the article, where it says Dungey's team is working on a second series of the Scooby Doo series Velma. It was the streamer's most watched animated debut ever. And we're not going to talk about the viewing figures at any other point or why we gave it such a long title to try and say it's the best one ever. I do kind of think that the top brass just get told these titles and assume it's good, rather than looking at the figures like everybody else, or the reception like everybody else. You know, actual real-world data points rather than somebody coming to you and going, no, trust me, it was a success. These are the same people that are telling you that hard comedy is making a comeback, and you're trusting them. The same people that say, after what we've been through recently, I think people are looking for things that make them laugh, things that are a little bit brighter, things that make them feel a sense of community. It's about a group of people that you check in with every week that make you feel a little bit better about the world, and make you laugh at the end of a very long day. Like you're surrounded by people you know, and who make you feel good. Like Velma. I mean, Velma's so horrific, she actually drags herself down, and is determined to drag the rest of the world down to her level. And yet, for some reason, this new and improved comedy that includes Velma Season 2 is all about being enlightened, a sense of community, making you feel good about yourself. And in a way, it kind of does, because no matter what you may go through, at least you've never been a Velma writer. Now, obviously, Velma getting a second series is a little bit weird, especially when you look at the critical reception was 42% from the critics off just 33 ratings, and 7% audience scores. It was an absolutely disastrous reception, and the viewing figures, I think, would back that up. Which is why they won't show it to us. They'll just keep banging on about the premiere in this really long titled way. There are those, though, that say it was hate watchers that made this show so successful it got a second series, and I don't think it is. But if it was, that'd be even funnier. I'm not somebody that wants these poorly received shows to be cancelled. I want HBO Max to burn even more money by renewing Velma for a second series. All HBO Max is doing is destroying their reputation even more, and they're paying to do it. This is a company burning money to destroy their own company. Their own employees are driving the company into the ground, not just by their bottom line, but by their reputation, by pumping out content which is despised by the general public. It's showing people who they are. It's showing people what their employees are. It's showing what their values, their corporate culture is like. And they are doing all of this at their own cost. I've long said average, boring entertainment is the worst for me. I can get entertainment out of good stuff and bad stuff, but average, boring, monotonous stuff, I just leave well alone. I don't want bad stuff, poorly received stuff to be cancelled, because I can make content out of that. I can be entertained by that. I can get my own pleasure and my own fun by laughing at it. And the show getting cancelled does nothing, because the people in the company are still the same people in the company, just making a different IP, moving on to a new IP. If anything, they're the ones that need to go, not the show. And the only way HBO Max is going to learn that lesson is by burning piles and piles of money until their reputation is through the floor. Because the longer this stuff goes on, the more it escalates, the more people catch on to it. Everyone's got that line where they suddenly realize, hang on, something's going on here. Welcome to the New York Times. The trouble with Reboot TV. Somebody who's identified the problem, but not really the reason why. They complain about the amount of reboots and how creativity in Hollywood is dead, and posits that there's two ways to do a reboot. You either stick closely to the source material and make something essentially the same just a couple of decades later, or you take the Velma approach, something that interrogates and deconstructs the source material so aggressively that it turns abrasive. Their issue is that they don't actually understand what this Velma is doing. They think that it's the premise which people are finding offensive rather than the content of Velma itself, which I can understand if when Velma comes out with all of her insane rants, you're just like, yep, that's true. Why you wouldn't have a problem with it. No, they think the problem is condescension, that somebody, an astute modern viewer, is equipped with a sophisticated grasp of the world that eluded everybody else before you. Arrogance, egotistical, entitled. It's like Mindy Kaling's character sheet in a D&D game. They think it's right that the character was changed, that someone's South Asian when they're talking about Velma because for some reason they're so scared to say her actual nationality. And all of that is a bold act of subversion. That's why they think that reboots will always fail, because they either stick to the source material and be uncanny and lifeless, which doesn't make any sense because people loved the source material. That's why you're making a TV show about it in the first place. So if you capture the soul of the first one, it won't be uncanny and lifeless, because the original source material wasn't, by the very definition of it being a success. If it was uncanny and lifeless, nobody would have watched it in the first place. What you actually mean when you say it's uncanny and lifeless is because it's traditional, it's old, it's classic. It doesn't reflect your modern sensibilities, which is why you called Velma's changes stunning and brave, because they did reflect your modern sensibilities. The issue is, despite holding those beliefs and saying them outwardly, deep down, you appear to know there's something wrong with them, as you think the other option is that it will make its predecessor cynical and sour, which if your opinion is that modernity is cynical and sour, then why are we simply cheering it on for Velma in this paragraph? There are so many people in the world that can understand that there is a problem, but are so scared to admit the cause of it, that they never come up with the reason why. We can do a very simple A/B test to just detect what has changed, and that must be the problem. But if that answer comes out to what you currently believe, then their mind swerves away from it. And obviously it's got to be something else. We can't tell what it is, folks. It's a mystery. A Scooby Doo mystery. But we seem to have identified a bit of a trend, don't we? That modern attitudes are simply turning things cynical and sour. Taking what came before, taking the past, and destroying it. Because you see everything that came before you as wrong, and you are just so much smarter than that. Even CEO of Warner Brothers Television Group starts talking about leaning into pie-in-the-face comedy. Things which are a bit brighter, make you surrounded by people you know, and that make you feel good. Everybody knows, even the people which are in charge of creating them, that these shows are horrible and nobody likes them. It's not a surprise when these things don't get views, because they're cynical and sour, and we know that people don't want that. And yet we're going to give it to them anyway, because we want to talk out of both sides of our mouth. It doesn't matter what we know to be true. It matters what we think people need. Even when we've identified that our beliefs are the problem, and that people want something brighter, our only option, because we're completely creatively bankrupt, is to take a different IP from the past. Something which is a little bit brighter. Of course, then, we can't leave it alone. We can't represent it in its true form, because we don't understand the appeals of classical entertainment. We don't understand them. They don't share our principles or our vision. They don't have our modern values. So to us, it just all seems uncanny and lifeless. So we have to change it. Surely nobody could like that stuff, even though it was popular at the time. I just don't understand why. And so we have to change it, update it, running through our filters, which inevitably turns it cynical and sour. This is an entire industry filled with people that realize there's a problem, understand the problem, and yet have no idea why everything they create is just more of the problem, because the only thing they can't accept is that they're the ones causing it, and the only solution is for them not to be there in the first place. That's how you get things like Movie Web. Here's why Mindy Kaling's Velma hasn't been well received. It's not funny, and feeds into stereotypes of South Asians, once again, for some reason. Too scared to say a nationality. I honestly don't know why. It's creepy at this point. Is it just because you want to collectivize more people into a larger group to use as a club against people? I don't understand. Now they say the fact that Velma is drawn with a different crayon is a positive change. They don't go into that, they don't expand that, they don't give any reason why, it's just a fact. And I suppose I have to say I don't care that Mindy Kaling is the voice actor. I think anyone could be the voice actor. I'm not someone that thinks that the voice actor must look like the actual drawing on the screen. To me, that's ridiculous. What actually is the problem to me is that you did feel the need to make the character look like the voice actress. These are animations, not people. You could have just kept them the same and changed the people doing the voices and nobody would have cared. And yet for some reason you changed all of the cast. It really showed the company and the creators to be the massive bigots that they are. And that was all before they even uttered a line of any of their script. Although I'm thinking about doing another video, because if you make one small change to that show, which it actually told you already, you come out with a very different story. One that actually reflects reality, rather than the creator's own admitted biased delusions. And they had a problem with the way that the show treated Fred, but not in the way that everyone else would have actually expected, you know, normal people. No, they think the biggest problem for Fred in the show is the way he was body shamed. Now, he was body shamed, but they don't mean for the significant part of his body. But of all of the Velma summaries, there was one to rule them all. One which is surprisingly accurate, but at no point even understands any of the irony which they've seemingly accidentally put in their own article. That obviously comes from CBR. This is the wildest subversion of Scooby Doo. It's a layered last couple of episodes. The tyrant's motives playing on season 1's theme of female empowerment. Notice how they put tyrants there, not villain. We definitely want to keep this article thoroughly in the realm of power dynamics with oppressor and oppressed. Nah, keep those morals and principles over there. They'll only get in the way. When they talk about Fred's sense of entitlement and privilege cause him to break free of his restraints. Because the Edna wanted to put a woman's brain inside Fred's body, she thought Daphne would be a perfect fit until Velma grows on it. Because the more you think about the show, the more contradictions show up and just don't make any sense. Why has she cut out multiple people's brains when she only needed one? Why does she keep saying that these people just don't understand how much the deck is stacked against them, when the rest of the show has proven that it isn't? It helps them. How come this entire show talks about Fred's entitlement and privilege, how men have it so easy, and yet every single thing in the show points to the exact opposite? Fred's the one who's been persecuted all the time. And if you read between the lines, look at the events of what's actually happening, rather than what people are saying about them, you actually get something close to reality. Because CBR is doing a great job of that. Velma's Victoria Jones is a twisted advocate, because while her project isn't one that can be condoned, her perspective is understandable. Yes, I would never suggest that you cut out people's brains, but if you did, I'd know that you were doing it for good. If anyone meets this writer, maybe you should be in a crowd, because that is an extremely dodgy line. But Victoria has always been around oppressive voice ones. Victoria was left to rebuild her life and business from scratch. Yes, her business. That would be the business that she never had because she was living off her father, who was a military general. Now, instead, Victoria decided to marry William, who apparently, according to this article, is an absolutely horrible voice one. But she marries him because she has use for him. We're going to ignore the fact that the show said he loved her and married for love, whereas she solely married for his money, so she's the horrible one in this. But no, it's definitely the person with dangly bits by default. Once she uses William's money to recreate her own, she uses his money to recreate her own money. In other words, she married him a gold digger and got a load of money that she never earned and shouldn't be entitled to. And she doesn't want to waste all the hard work she put in. Do you know how many hours she had to spend horizontal? That is back-breaking labor. Thus, her son Fred embodies everything she hates because he's got dangly bits, and feels that a Voice 2 would happily live in his skin. A Voice 2 in a Voice 2 body would have the power to manipulate a patriarchal society that places them atop the ladder. And this is being said by someone who never worked a day in their life, never created anything of value at all except Fred, and literally got given everything she ever had by the very people she hates. And Victoria realizes that Velma knows all of this. Velma knows how to be judgmental, but the writer has spotted a problem with the villain's evil plan. And it's not that it's evil, it's not that she's murdering Fred. Oh no, that's fine. At the end of the day, dangly bits guy, he never really appreciated his body anyway, so anything that happens to that, that's all fair enough. No, they think the problem with the entire thing is that she doesn't see that by stripping away a Voice 1's brains and using Fred as the vehicle, she's actually taking away their agency. Yeah, the writer isn't concerned that Fred is going to be yeeted into a trash can. They're concerned that Velma may not knowingly agree with it all. And this is what makes Victoria a monster, taking away their agency. You know what else takes away somebody's agency? Saying that people live in a patriarchal society and that they'll never achieve anything unless they're born a certain way. Lying to people, demoralizing people, saying that people will never achieve anything because of what they are and there's nothing they can do to fix it. Now, I'm sure it's a very handy excuse for you, a cozy blanket to wrap around yourself. There's all of your failings aren't your fault, it's somebody else's fault, out into the ether. The mythical group of all-powerful Voice 2s. And if you want to believe that, that's fine. But maybe don't go around attempting to destroy everybody else's life by trying to make them feel the same way. Especially when you knowingly understand how horrific your opinion is, which is a common trend. Not just having a horrific viewpoint, but being able to identify that as the cause of the problem of everything. And then just as you get close enough to saying that's it, you go, oh no, actually it's probably something else over there that I can't explain properly. This is why all of these articles get one step away from answering every question and like, oh no, sorry, I'm gonna go over here now. Now, the writer of the CBR article is Ronaldo Matadine, who does all these kind of articles, lots of different stuff. I was surprised by his February the 11th when he came out and said, really, the dude made a Chad, but in a nice way. I was like, oh, maybe the Velma article is just a one-off, and actually he was just doing an accurate summary of the show, rather than running it through his own bias again. Unfortunately, even when he's talking about other shows, she knew Shane was a toxic male. So I think we've successfully identified Velma's target audience. Now, there were other opinions, like the official newspaper of the College of Stanton Island. I may not be the master of marketing, but maybe come up with a snappier name. Hardly rolls off the tongue, does it? But I just wanted to bring this up when they say nearly every character feels like a cynical YouTube commentator. I was like, hold up, you can't say that. I resemble that remark. These people are constantly making disparaging remarks about each other. Velma herself is even unengaging and a mean protagonist at times. Calm down, dude, you're basically describing my videos. And I have to say, mate, I'm not a cynical YouTube commentator because of Velma. because I'm English. My only defense against this is I think I come back at you with the same energy I get given. I just think if Velma takes on a certain tone and doesn't try very hard, then why should I? At least in She-Hulk, they tried to say something. They tried to come up with some kind of message. Velma doesn't. And of course, to round it out, I think one of the funniest things to happen to Velma is when the former Daphne voice actor comes out and has a go at it herself, which just says Velma becomes the worst rated animated TV series on IMDb history. Jeepers. Didn't happen when I was there, did it, folks? Because I think that is key, and I come back to it with all of these shows. Loads of people talk about how they want the bad TV shows to be cancelled, and I don't, for reasons I've already explained. I would rather watch bad television rather than mediocre, boring television. I can get entertainment out of terrible television. And also, I like them burning money, because I can watch Velma and get entertainment out of it, I can laugh at it, and hopefully I can make content that makes other people laugh about it. But they have no intention of watching the show themselves. And that means HBO Max is burning money while entertaining me. That's perfect for me when you're doing things that I disagree with. The people that make the shows are the ones causing the problems, not the shows. Even if that show got cancelled, if everyone behind the scenes just moves on to another job and takes another IP from your child and makes a show about that instead, you know it's not going to be the original IP. It's still going to be them doing what they want, which essentially means it's going to be another Velma, just with different names. Because we all know Velma wasn't Scooby Doo to begin with, so they can take any IP and it'll turn out the same way. Because the problem is their lack of creativity, their lack of talent, their lack of actually being hired on merit in the first place. Because if you were hired on merit, you never could have hired someone with these beliefs, these ideas, because it's the ideas which are the problem. And they know it is. They know the audience don't want it. The audience wants something entertaining, funny, bright, something that when they come back from work after a stressful day, it makes them feel happy, a little bit brighter, surrounded by people you know who make you feel good. They know this is what people want, they know the problems that cause it. They know that it's their ideas causing the problems. They just don't want to admit it, and so their brain swerves off in another direction. These aren't people living in reality. They're not being held accountable and responsible. They're living in their own delusions, and so if they hit a fact which they don't want to admit, their brain swerves away, and it's clearly somebody else's fault. It must be those people with privilege and entitlement over there. They definitely caused all of this. If you haven't worked for your position, if you haven't failed at things, if you haven't earned it, then you don't know where your limits are. You don't know what you shouldn't be doing. You just know you got into your position and it was incredibly easy, and so you won't respect it. Everything came easy to you, which means you deserve to be higher. And all those people above you, they probably had it easy as well. As easy as you did, they just got given it because of who they are. To appreciate your position, you have to have struggled to reach there, and that struggle is how you know your limits. It's what makes you feel satisfied in your life, that you've struggled to get there, and this is the best I can be. But in Hollywood, it's a slippery pole you've got to climb, a zero-sum game. To get a new IP, you've got to take somebody else's. And they are willing to do anything, say anything to get it. Crush anyone above them in any way possible, even if it means slandering them for the way they were born. There is no depths of depravity they won't sink to, no horror show that they won't create. And there is no lie too big enough to be told. Lies, like saying that Velma was a success. We burnt one pile of money and now we're burning a second one. What a great victory. It's so great that they allowed us to burn that second pile as well. That's not what I call a success. But then again, I don't work in Hollywood, do I? Well, those are my thoughts. So what are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.